There's a very well-known story or a joke, and I'm sure you've all heard it before, about this small town that's experiencing a huge flood. And this man hears from God that God is going to save him. And so he's waiting around for God to save him. And the water begins to rise in his house, and it's getting to a bit of an uncomfortable level. So he goes out on the roof and is patiently waiting. He's calm while everybody else is running around trying to leave this town that's flooding. He's sitting on his roof and just waiting around for God to come get him. Now first a lifeboat comes by, and the man in the boat says, "Sir, please come in the boat. There's flooding. We have to evacuate. Let's leave right now." And the man says, no, God is going to save me. God is going to save me. And so the guy in the lifeboat has no choice but to leave. Next, a helicopter comes, and the ladder comes down, and the person from the helicopter shouts, "Sir, please climb up to the helicopter. We have to evacuate. There's this huge flood coming." And the man says, "No, God is going to save me. God is going to save me." And the water keeps continuing to rise and to rise and to rise, and unfortunately this man drowns. And when he goes to heaven, he says, "God, you said you were going to save me." And God said, "What are you talking about? I tried to save you. I sent you a lifeboat and a helicopter, but you didn't take them." Now, how does that relate to this week's Parsha? This week's Parsha is Parsha Noach, the second chapter in the book of Genesis. And this week's Parsha also has a great flood, a huge flood, a historic flood, one that I'm sure we've all heard of before also. And this is a story of Noah and his ark. Now, the generation of Noah was a generation of wicked people, really terrible people. We're not that far from the beginning of creation, which was last week's Parsha. But already the people are sinners, and God is thinking, why did I create man? I should just wipe them out and start over again. But there's a righteous person, Noah, and his family. And God decides he has to save Noah and his family. So he tells Noah, and the way it seems in the Parsha, he tells Noah, is to build an ark. And the timeline seems to happen so quickly that Noah builds this ark, and it starts to rain, and him and his family get on the ark with all of the animals, and they're there for 40 days and 40 nights until the land is dry. And then they're the only humans on the earth. But really, Noah built the ark for over 120 years, at least 120 years. That's what the sources, the sages, the rabbis have to say about it. But it took at least 120 years for Noah to build this ark. So commentators ask, they say, okay, if it took 120 years for Noah to build the ark, didn't the people in the town see him and wonder what's he doing? So in fact, yes, the people in the town sat around and watched Noah build this ark for 120 years. And they would ask Noah, "What are you doing?" And he'd say, "I'm building this ark because God's going to destroy the world, and you have to repent, otherwise you're going to be destroyed along with it." And the people would ask Noah, but they wouldn't do anything. They didn't repent. They didn't turn back towards God. They didn't stop their sins. And so they were wiped out. They were annihilated. But it's interesting because they had this huge ark sitting there for 120 years, and they didn't change their ways. They didn't do anything. So all of that is an introduction for how we cannot miss God's signs and symbols. Now, God might not be sending us something as big as a lifeboat. He might not be sending us something like a helicopter, and he certainly, most likely, is not sending us signs as big as an ark, as big as Noah's ark. But God is still sending us signs and symbols, and yet we often miss them. Now, what are some ways that we can see these signs and symbols from God? What are some ways that we can open our eyes not to miss them when God sends them our way? Things as obvious as the lifeboat and the helicopter that God sent to save the man in the joke. Now, there are several ways to go about doing this. One is to pray to God for the knowledge and for the answers. I've been listening to a wonderful class on TorahAnytime.com by Rabbi Ben Susan about the Shemona Esrei. Now, the very first class in his series on the Shemona Esrei is about the fourth blessing of the Shemona Esrei, which is Atah Chonen Le'adam Da'at, which is the blessing where we're asking God for knowledge and wisdom and to sort of open our eyes to be wise and to be wise people. So one way that we could go about not missing these signs and symbols is to pray to God for knowledge and for wisdom and to open our eyes to not miss the signs and symbols that he's sending our direction, so that when we see the ark, we know that we should repent and turn back towards God. Another way that we can try to go about not missing these signs and symbols is one that I think I better explain with a story. I didn't grow up keeping kosher, and when I started slowly becoming kosher, it was a process and it took a long time. And the first thing I dropped was not eating non-kosher meat. And then it took several years for me to take another step. And the next step I took was after an experience where I ordered a cheese quesadilla, and inside my cheese quesadilla was chicken. And I kind of thought, okay, you know what, maybe this is a sign that I shouldn't be eating dairy out anymore either. So I stopped eating non-kosher dairy products, and I was just eating vegan out because I figured what could be wrong with just vegetables. Then 3 times in a row, I ordered salads, and each one had a bug in it. And I thought, okay, you know what? This is a sign, and it's time for me to keep full kosher. Now, there are different ways you can look at it. You could say, oh, Avital, you just had really bad luck. It's unfortunate that 4 times you got what you weren't asking for. You got bugs in your salad, you got chicken in your quesadilla. That's really unfortunate, but there's nothing to that. Or you can look at it as a personal sign. I'm not saying that God sent me the sign by putting bugs in my lettuce, but I am saying that when I saw the bugs in my lettuce, I took it as a symbol, as a sign that I was ready to keep kosher. I saw that, and I didn't say, oh, it's an unhappy coincidence. I took that experience and said, okay, I'm ready to keep kosher now. That was my sign. That was my symbol, what I was looking for. Then it led me to take another step. So I can't exactly tell you what it's going to look like in your life, but you'll know it when you see it. You'll know when you're ready to take something on or to go in a certain direction based off of this sign that's put in front of you. But I do think that there are certain things that we can do to try and open our eyes to be looking out for these things. I think that an example I give people often is sitting in traffic. I am sure a lot of you, as I do, live in places where there's a lot of traffic, and we can sit in traffic a long time and be unhappy about it. Or we can say maybe this traffic has a purpose. Maybe I'm supposed to practice my patience, or maybe I'm supposed to be in this traffic, or somebody else is supposed to be in this traffic for a purpose, because if they got someplace more quickly, God forbid something bad would happen to them. So if we can just open our eyes to be more grateful and more intentional or purposeful with how we feel or respond to something, then that might be a way to see the signs and symbols as well. Now, I would love to hear ideas from you all about how you think we can avoid missing God's signs and symbols, so please feel free to comment and give me ideas. I'm always looking for new ideas and ways to look out for things from God. And I hope you all have a wonderful week ahead and a great Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom. I look forward to seeing you all next week, where we're going to talk about Parshat Lech Lecha and going against the current. Have a Shabbat Shalom.